My fiancée wanted a break to see if her ex was the one, so I disappeared. What she found when she came back left her speechless. Her return completely overturned his world. My name is Liam. I'm 30, and until recently I believed I was going to marry the woman of my dreams, Tessa. We had been together for 4 years, and for most of that period I was convinced we were deeply connected. But now, I sit here wondering how I could have missed the signs. Tessa and I first met through a mutual friend at a birthday gathering. She was lively, self-assured, and possessed a straightforward attitude that I found genuinely appealing. I had dated before, but no one connected with me in the way she did. We quickly bonded and decided to live together after a year. Everything felt natural, as if we were perfectly aligned on every major aspect of life: our careers, future marriage, and eventually starting a family. She worked as a freelance graphic designer, and my job was in marketing, so our schedules naturally complemented each other. Our life wasn't extravagant, but it was fulfilling. We had discussed getting married for some time, but it wasn't until last year that I finally proposed. It was a simple, quiet dinner at home. Just the two of us. Tessa seemed overjoyed. She cried, embraced me, and accepted. That evening, we began envisioning our future: a fall wedding, a small guest list, and a quaint little venue by the lake. It truly felt like everything was falling into place, or so I believed. The initial warning signs weren't blatant or obvious. They were subtle, almost imperceptible shifts that I dismissed, not wanting to overthink things. For instance, Tessa's enthusiasm for wedding preparations began to wane after a few months. Initially, she was fully engaged, sending me Pinterest boards, browse wedding dresses, and asking for my preferences on small details, like tulips or roses for the centerpieces. But then, it just stopped. I would ask things like, "Have you chosen your bridesmaids yet?" And she would brush it off with, "Not yet, I'm still considering it," repeating the same response again and again. The same applied to her dress, the cake, and even the music. Every decision we had once been so excited about became something she wanted to postpone. "There's still plenty of time," she'd tell me. It was as though the wedding itself had become an afterthought. At the time, I convinced myself it was just stress. Wedding planning can be overwhelming, right? Plus, Tessa had a lot going on with her work. I figured she would eventually snap out of it. What I failed to realize was that her lack of enthusiasm wasn't about the wedding at all. It was about us. The stark realization hit me one evening when we were with friends. Someone brought up that TikTok game, "We listen but we don't judge." You've probably seen it. It's the one where you answer personal questions, and everyone is supposed to maintain a poker face, though everyone invariably judges anyway. Everything was going smoothly until someone inquired, "If you could re-experience one relationship, which one would it be?" Without a moment's hesitation, Tessa blurted out, "Oh, probably Dylan." Just like that. Dylan, her college ex, the one who had cheated on her. The instant she said it, an awkward silence fell over the room. She nervously laughed and tried to backtrack, saying, "I mean, not that I'd actually want to. It's just, a significant part of my past." I wanted to confront her right then, but we were with friends, so I let it go. Later, when we were alone, I asked her about it. "What was that about Dylan? Why would you say you'd relive that relationship?" She simply shrugged it off as if it were trivial. "It was just a silly game, Liam. Don't take it so seriously." She smiled and quickly changed the topic. I didn't press further because, honestly, I didn't want to start an argument over something that might have been nothing. But deep down, it stayed with me. After that, her behavior became increasingly difficult to overlook. She was on her phone more often, scrolling through messages with a subtle, secretive smile. She started making vague excuses for why she couldn't meet up, or why she would cancel plans at the last minute. "Oh, sorry, I just have a lot of work to catch up on tonight," she'd say. Or, "I promised my mom I'd visit this weekend." The excuses weren't overtly suspicious, but they were accumulating. It felt like I was suddenly less of a priority. Then came the Friday night that changed everything. I arrived home early from work, eager to spend the evening with Tessa. I envisioned us ordering takeout and binging a show, a relaxed night. But when I walked in, the atmosphere felt off. She was on the couch with her laptop, but she wasn't working. She was just sitting there, staring blankly at the screen, completely disengaged. "Hey, I'm home," I said, trying to break the tension. "You're early," she replied, as if that were a negative thing. I brushed it off and went to the kitchen to start dinner, but the silence in the house was suffocating. Usually, she would ask about my day or share details about hers, but tonight, nothing. Finally, I turned around and asked, "Everything okay?" She closed her laptop and looked at me. "Actually, there's something I need to discuss with you." And just like that, my stomach churned. You know that feeling when you sense something terrible is about to happen, but you're powerless to stop it? That was me, standing there like an idiot with a spatula in my hand. I walked over and sat opposite her. "All right," I said. "What's going on?" She hesitated, as if searching for the right words. Then she just blurted it out. "I've been thinking about us, and about Dylan." I swear, I almost chuckled. "Dylan, are you serious? What about him?" She bit her lip and avoided my gaze. "I think I need some time to figure things out. I want to take a break to see if there's still something there with him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want to take a break so you can date? Your ex? Are you out of your mind, Tessa? We're engaged." "It's not like that," she said quickly, as if she could smooth this over. "I just need to know if I'm making the right choice with you, and if it doesn't work out, I promise I'll come back." That's when I grasped the depth of her presumption. She genuinely believed I would sit around and wait for her to decide if I was sufficient. In that moment, something within me shifted. I didn't erupt, didn't shout. I simply sat there, staring at her, wondering how on earth I hadn't foreseen this. I didn't even know how to react at first. My fiancée, had just told me she wanted a break to explore things with her ex, Dylan. What do you even say to that? Finally, I managed to ask, "So, what exactly does this break mean to you?" My voice came out calm, far calmer than I felt. She straightened up slightly, as if she had been preparing for this conversation. "I think we need some space to figure things out. I'll take some time to see if what I'm feeling about Dylan is genuine, and you can take time to reflect on us, too." I couldn't believe the audacity. "Wait," I said, leaning forward. "You're saying you need to date your ex, but I need to reflect on us? What kind of twisted logic is that?" Tessa sighed, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "It's not about you doing anything wrong, Liam. This is about me figuring out what I need." It felt as though she had rehearsed this, the way she spoke, the way she avoided eye contact. It was like she had already decided this was happening, and now she just needed me to comply. "You know this sounds insane, right?" I said. "You don't just put your fiancé on hold while you go play what if with some guy who treated you terribly." Her face hardened, and for the first time, I saw how stubborn she could be. "I'm not asking for permission, Liam. I'm telling you what I need." That phrase resonated differently. I wasn't just sad anymore. I was angry. I stood up and started pacing, trying to compose myself. "So what, Tessa? You're just going to pack a bag and head over to Dylan's place? Is that your grand scheme?" "No," she snapped. "It's not like that. I just don't know what it looks like yet, but I need clarity before we move forward. I owe it to myself to know I'm making the right decision." "You owe it to yourself?" I repeated, laughing bitterly. "And what about what you owe me? We're engaged. Tessa. We're supposed to be building a life together, and now you're telling me you need to test drive your ex to ensure I'm good enough." "I never said you weren't good enough," she shot back, her voice rising. "But if we're going to spend the rest of our lives together, I have to be certain. And right now, I'm not." That was it. It wasn't just that she wanted to explore things with Dylan. It was that she wasn't sure about me. After 4 years together, after all the plans we had made, she still wasn't sure. It hit me all at once. She didn't even grasp how hurtful and absurd her request was. She thought this was reasonable, as if I would just sit there while she sorted through whatever nonsense was swirling in her head. I stopped pacing and truly looked at her. "You know what? Sure," I said, my tone flat. "Take your break." She blinked, surprised by how readily I agreed. "Liam, I'm not trying to hurt you. I just need space to figure things out." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "All right, if that's what you need." She hesitated, as if expecting me to argue, to fight for her. When I didn't, she stood up, grabbed her laptop and mumbled, "I'll stay at my mom's for a bit. This isn't forever. We'll talk when I've had some time, okay?" "Okay," I said simply. She glanced at me, unsure how to respond, then vanished into the bedroom. I could hear her moving around, tossing items into a bag. I remained on the couch, calm, externally, but my mind was already racing. If she wanted her break so badly, fine, let her have it. A few minutes later, I heard the front door close. She was gone, likely assuming she had left me here to wait and wonder. Little did she know, I wasn't going. to simply sit around. She could pursue her fantasy, but I had my own intentions now. I don't know how long I sat there before I finally shook myself out of it. The very first thing I did was pick up my phone and dial my friend Noah. Noah has been my closest companion since college, and he's the type of person who doesn't mince words. If I needed someone to assure me I wasn't insane for feeling like my entire life had just disintegrated, he was the guy. "Yo, what's up?" he answered, his voice casual. "Tessa wants to take a break to date her ex," I blurted out. There was a long silence. "What the hell?" he finally said. "She said that to your face?" "Yep," I said, rubbing my temple. "She packed a bag and left like it was no big deal, said she needs clarity." Noah let out a low whistle. "Dude, that's messed up. Are you okay?" "Not really," I admitted. "I just don't even know how to process this. 4 years, man, 4 years, and she's still fixated on Dylan. You want me to come over?" he asked. "We can order some food, talk it out." "Yeah, actually, that'd be great," I said. About an hour later, Noah arrived with pizza. He didn't even wait for me to recount the whole story. He just listened as I unloaded everything. By the time I finished, he was shaking his head. "Bro, she's not worth this," he said. "If she can't see what she has with you, that's on her. You're better off without someone who's going to treat you like a second option." I nodded, but it didn't make me feel any better. It wasn't just about losing Tessa. It was about losing the future I thought we were constructing together. I had envisioned a life with her, marriage, kids, all of it. And now it was simply gone. We stayed up late talking and watching TV, and for the first time, in hours, I started to feel a little less like the ground was crumbling beneath me. I didn't have a specific course of action yet, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let Tessa keep me waiting while she sorted out what she desired. The next morning, my phone vibrated. I rolled over, half awake, and squinted at the screen. Tessa, of course. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a moment, my brain still hazy. She wants to talk? Seriously? After everything she revealed, now she wants to play the concerned girlfriend? I thought she might have realized how foolish she sounded yesterday. I dragged myself to the kitchen to brew coffee. There was no way I was dealing with this absurdity, before caffeine. As I leaned against the counter, sipping my coffee, my mind raced. She truly had the nerve to return and act like I was the one who owed her patience. It wasn't anger I felt, at least not anymore. It was more disbelief. How could someone be so unaware, so engrossed in their own fantasy that they believed this kind of stunt was acceptable? But I wasn't about to let her see that. No, if she wanted to play this game, I would play along, except I wouldn't be the one losing. Finally, I picked up my phone and replied, "Sure, come over later." Short, simple. Let her think she's still in control. A few hours later, there she was, standing at the door as if nothing had happened. She looked composed, as if she had spent far too much time perfecting that calm, collected demeanor. Her hair was styled, makeup flawless. I could tell she had rehearsed this. She was ready to present whatever narrative she had devised. I stepped aside and let her in without a word. She walked in as if she still belonged, sitting on the couch as if it were any other day. "Thanks for letting me come by," she said softly, as if she were doing me a favor. I leaned against the wall. "What's up?" She took a deep breath, her hands clasped together, as if this were some grand performance. "I've been thinking a lot," she began. "Here we go. And I think I've come up with a way for us to move forward," she continued, her tone too measured, too rehearsed. I nodded, maintaining a neutral expression. "All right, let's hear it." "Well," she said, clearly leading up to something she thought was brilliant. "I think the best thing for us right now is to put the wedding plans on hold. Just temporarily, while I take the time I need to gain clarity on everything. That way, we don't lose the progress we've made, and we can pick things back up once I'm sure about us." I stared at her, waiting for the catch. She wasn't joking. She actually thought this was reasonable. "That's your big plan?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," she said, nodding as if she had just solved a global crisis. "It's practical, Liam. We've invested so much time, effort, and money into this relationship. I don't want to discard it all over something that might not even matter in the long run." Something that might not even matter. That phrase kept reverberating in my mind. She was referring to us, our relationship, as if it were some investment, portfolio she didn't want to write off. I felt a laugh bubbling up, but I suppressed it. "Not yet." Let her continue. "You're okay with this, right?" she asked, tilting her head slightly as if genuinely confused why I hadn't reacted yet. Sure, I said, shrugging. Her eyes darted to mine as if she didn't quite believe I had agreed so easily. Wait, you're okay with it? Yeah, I said, keeping my tone even. If that's what you need, go for it. She blinked, clearly thrown off. She had probably expected me to argue, to fight, perhaps even to plead with her to stay. Instead, I offered her nothing. I just don't want you to think this means I don't care, she added quickly, trying to fill the silence. I just need some space to figure out what I truly want. It's not forever. Got it, I said, nodding. For a moment, she just stared at me, attempting to read my face, but I wasn't giving her anything. Let her stew in her own awkwardness. She stood up, smoothing her hands over her jeans. I'll stay at my mom's for a bit, she said. It's not forever. We'll talk once I've had some time. All right, I said, keeping my voice neutral. She hesitated, as if she wanted to say something more, but then she simply grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Thanks for understanding, she said, pausing before stepping out. I just nodded again, keeping my face blank. After she left, I stood there for a moment, contemplating how I could no longer envision her as a wife. She was gone, off to figure out her ex, and she actually believed I was sitting here waiting for her to decide if I was good enough to fit into her perfect little fantasy life, but she didn't grasp it. This wasn't her decision anymore. I walked over to the window and watched her car exit the driveway. She was likely feeling relieved, thinking she had bought herself some time to sort things out with Dylan. Let her think that. The truth was, I had already made my choice. I wasn't going to argue, wasn't going to fight for someone who thought it was acceptable to keep me on the back burner while she explored her uncertainties. She could have her break. She could have Dylan. I was done playing along. The interesting thing is, I didn't even feel angry anymore. I felt liberated. It was as if a switch had flipped in my mind. All this time, I had been preoccupied with what she desired, what she needed, how I could remedy things. But now, it was about me. I sat down on the couch. I could already hear her voice in my head, weeks, or perhaps months from now, attempting to manipulate her way back in. I made a mistake, Liam. I needed clarity, but now I see what I truly want. Too late. Life doesn't operate like that. I had no intention of sitting here pining for her return. This wasn't about playing games or seeking retribution. It was about moving forward. She had made her decision, and so had I. I spent the next week putting things into motion. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about eliminating every trace of her and regaining control. I started with the wedding plans. I grabbed my laptop and canceled everything. The venue, the photographer, the caterer. It all had to go. Some deposits were non-refundable. But who cared? It wasn't about the money. It was about definitively closing this chapter. As I clicked through the emails, I couldn't help but inwardly smile. She probably thought I was at home, heartbroken, weeping, waiting for her to realize I was superior to her ex and come crawling back. She had no idea I was systematically erasing her from my life, one email at a time. Then there was the house. Ironically, Tessa always acted like it was our home. She chose the paint colors, nagged me about throw pillows, and even insisted on those awful curtains in the living room. But here's what she never seemed to understand. The house was mine. My name was on the deed. My money in the mortgage. I called my friend Noah, who connected me with a real estate agent. Within days, I had the paperwork ready to list it. My plan was straightforward. Sell the house, move on, and leave Tessa with absolutely nothing to return to. She wanted space to figure out her life. She could do that from scratch. One part was almost too gratifying. Tessa had left all her belongings behind when she walked out. Clothes, books, and those ridiculous live, laugh, love signs she insisted on placing everywhere. I boxed it all up and drove it to her mom's place. No warning, no texts. I simply left it on the porch with a note. Here's your stuff. Good luck with Dylan. Was it petty? Perhaps. Did I care? Not in the slightest. Then I sat there and waited. As expected, a week later, my phone vibrated. It was her. Can we talk? I think we need to clear the air. I laughed out loud. She must have realized her little fantasy with Dylan wasn't everything it was cracked up to be. I couldn't resist seeing how this would unfold. Sure, I replied. Come by tomorrow. The next day, she appeared, and the expression on her face was priceless. She stepped inside and froze, her eyes darting around the bare walls, the empty shelves, the moving boxes stacked in the corner. What's happening here? She asked, her voice trembling. I'm selling the house, I said casually, as if speaking to a neighbor, leaning against the counter. Her jaw dropped. You're what? Selling our house? It's not our house, Tessa, I said, letting that sink in. It's mine, and I don't need this much space anymore. She stared at me as if I had struck her. Why didn't you tell me? Why would I? You left, remember? I said, keeping my tone calm. Her face went pale. Wait, so you've been planning this? You're just moving on? I shrugged. What else was I supposed to do? Sit around and wait for you to come back? She shook her head, her voice rising. Liam, no, that's not what I meant when I said I needed time. You didn't think I'd what? Take you seriously? I interrupted. You said you needed space to figure out if you wanted me or Dylan, so I gave it to you. She took a step closer, her voice trembling. But I didn't mean it like this. I thought you understood. I wasn't ending things, I just needed clarity. I laughed, shaking my head. Clarity, Tessa? You didn't want clarity, you wanted a safety net. You thought you could run off, test the waters with Dylan, and then waltz back here like nothing happened. Sorry, but that's not how it works. Her composure completely fractured. Liam, please. I made a mistake. Dylan. He's not what I thought. He hasn't changed. I was foolish. I see that now. Please don't do this. Don't throw us away. I crossed my arms, meeting her tear-filled eyes with a steady gaze. You're right about one thing, Tessa. You were foolish. But not just for going back. To Dylan. You were foolish for thinking I'd let you treat me like a contingency plan. She grabbed my arm, her voice desperate. I wasn't, I swear. I just panicked. I was scared, but I know now that it's you. It's always been you. Please, we can fix this. We can still get married. I yanked my arm away, shaking my head. No, we can't. You made your choice, Tessa. You chose doubt. You chose Dylan. And now, I'm choosing me. Her face crumpled, and she began to sob. Liam, please, I'll do anything to fix this. It's too late, I said firmly. You broke this. You don't get to come back and pretend it never happened. She stood there, trembling, tears streaming down her face, finally realizing there was nothing left to say. She turned and walked out the door, and with that, Tessa was out of my life, or so I thought. I sold the house, moved into my new apartment, and began putting everything about her behind me. I wasn't bitter. I simply didn't have the energy to keep carrying her emotional baggage. I thought I had handled it cleanly, that we had both moved on separately. But Tessa, she wasn't finished, and when she made her next move, it wasn't direct. The first indication something was amiss came in a phone call from my mom. I had barely said hello before she launched into it. Liam, why am I hearing from Aunt Sharon that the wedding is canceled? Is this true? I froze, the words catching me off guard. The only people who knew the wedding was off were Tessa and I. I hadn't even informed my family yet, frankly because I didn't want to deal with their reactions. But now, the news was out. Where did Aunt Sharon hear that? I asked cautiously, already suspecting the answer. From Tessa's mom. She's been telling everyone that you called off the wedding. Apparently Tessa is heartbroken, and you're being unreasonable. I nearly dropped the phone. Heartbroken? Unreasonable? The audacity of her spinning this like I was the villain was almost impressive. She had been the one to walk away, the one who wanted to figure things out with her cheating ex, and now she was portraying me as the bad guy. Mom, that's not what happened, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Tessa and I aren't together anymore. She made her choice, and I moved on. Well, you need to do some damage control, she said, her tone sharp. Half the family is discussing this, and they all believe you blindsided her. Damage control. That's what it had come to. Not only had Tessa managed to infiltrate my family's conversations, but she had turned the entire situation into a pity party for herself. I should have let it go. I should have attributed it to her being spiteful and left it at that. But when I received a call later that same day from my boss, I realized this wasn't just a family matter anymore. Hey, Liam, I wanted to check in, my boss said cautiously. Is everything okay? I heard from a friend of mine. Apparently, your ex is going through a tough time, and she mentioned your name. She didn't provide any specifics, but you know how these things circulate. Just ensuring it's not going to cause distractions here. I clenched my jaw, the pieces aligning. Tessa hadn't just been recounting her version of events to family. She was weaving my name into her personal sob story with anyone who would listen. I thanked my boss for the heads up and ended the call. My blood was boiling. This wasn't about resolution or reconciliation anymore. She was deliberately trying to undermine my life, painting herself as the victim to anyone who would grant her 5 minutes of attention. That was the absolute limit. I had remained silent until now, believing it was the mature course of action. But if she wanted to play games, I wasn't going to stand by and let her distort the narrative. The next day, I sent a group message to both of our families, keeping it concise and direct. Hi everyone, I wanted to address something. Tessa and I are no longer engaged, and it was a mutual decision after a lot of difficult conversation. I'd appreciate it if we could all respect each other's privacy and move forward without assigning blame. Thank you. It wasn't overly dramatic, but it was enough to halt her nonsense before it spread further. Then, I blocked her on everything: phone, social media, email. She didn't deserve access to my life anymore, not after how she tried to manipulate things. The aftermath wasn't easy. My mom wasn't pleased about me handling it so directly, and a few relatives still gossiped about how I could throw away such a good thing, but I knew the truth, and that was sufficient. All my ex-fiancée did was demonstrate how little she respected me or the relationship we had shared. If anything, she made me even more thankful that I had removed her from my life for good. So, here I was, finally establishing boundaries. Blocking her felt like flipping a switch, cutting the power to the drama engine she'd been operating for weeks. It wasn't merely about silencing her. It was about reclaiming my peace. The first thing I did was seize control of the narrative. People tend to fill in the gaps when you remain quiet, and I had given Tessa far too much latitude to construct her story. So, I called the people whose opinions mattered most to me: my close friends, my siblings, and my mom. I laid it all out. No embellishments, just the facts. Look, I told my mom over coffee. I didn't throw away a good thing. She abandoned me. For her ex, plain and simple. I tried to be civil, but she's out there spreading tales like she's the victim. I'm not letting her slander my name. Mom gave me her classic disapproving look, the one that could make a grown man feel like a scolded teenager. I understand, Liam, but you could have been more tactful. Tactful, Mom? She's airing our private matters to anyone who will listen. I'm done playing nice. That seemed to resonate with her. She sighed, finally conceding. I just want you to be happy. Don't let her drag you down. From there, I made it my mission to squash the rumors wherever they surfaced. If someone brought up Tessa, I offered the brief version. It didn't work out, and she's not the person I thought she was. End of story. Most people caught on and dropped it, but a few required a more direct approach, like my cousin Mark, who cornered me at a family barbecue. Hey man, I heard you left Tessa in a tough spot. What's going on with that? I stared at him, barely believing the nerve. You heard wrong, Mark. She left me to figure things out with her ex. If you want the full story, ask her. I'm not participating in gossip. He quickly backed off after that. While I was busy cleaning up the social mess, I also had to manage my work situation. My boss, thankfully, was understanding about the whole affair. I explained the situation privately, stressing that it wouldn't impact my performance. He nodded and said, I figured there was more to it. Just keep your head down, and don't let it bother you. But Tessa wasn't done trying to cause trouble. A week later, I received an email from a mutual friend of ours, Sarah. She wasn't taking sides, but she felt compelled to share something. Hey Liam, I thought you should know Tessa's been posting stuff online. Nothing overtly malicious, but it's clear she's referring to you. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I thanked Sarah and investigated. Sure enough, Tessa had been posting vague, passive-aggressive quotes about betrayal and heartbreak. Phrases like, some people will discard diamonds to pursue stones. Very subtle. At first, I was tempted to respond, to confront her for the nonsense, but then I stopped myself. Why descend to her level? She wanted a reaction, and I wasn't going to give her one. Instead, I reported her post for harassment and moved on. That was the true turning point for me, realizing I didn't owe her, or anyone, an explanation anymore. My life wasn't a public forum for her to scrutinize and manipulate. If she wanted to dwell in the past, that was her problem, not mine. One night, sitting with my friend Jake, he said something that truly resonated with me. Man, you dodged a bullet. Imagine if all this came out after you were married. You're better off. Trust me. He was right. As painful as it had been, ending things with Tessa before we tied the knot was the best thing that could have happened. It wasn't just about avoiding the drama. Being with her had obscured what I truly desired in a partner. Someone who supported me. Not someone who would turn on me the moment things got challenging. As a few months passed, Tessa's antics began to recede into the background. People moved on, and so did I. My family stopped bringing her up, the whispers at work subsided, and her online posts eventually ceased. It was as if she finally understood. She couldn't keep exploiting the situation for sympathy. I'd like to say I forgave her, but honestly, I didn't, and that's perfectly fine. Not every wrong needs to be pardoned to be left behind. I don't despise her. I simply don't care anymore. The real sense of completion came when I realized I wasn't waiting for her to apologize or for people to acknowledge my perspective. I was living my life for myself, not for anyone else's approval. So, I suppose all I want to convey is that sometimes the most difficult decisions are the ones that ultimately save you. Severing ties with Tessa wasn't easy, but it was essential. It taught me to trust my instincts, to advocate for myself, and to never settle for less than I deserve. Looking back now, I have no regrets. I am in a better place, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Life is too brief to squander on people who don't value you, and if I've learned anything, it's this. The best form of retribution isn't seeking revenge, it's living well. And with that, this chapter of my life is officially closed.